Yeah, good morning, audience. We appreciate your participation. Yesterday, we had a session headed by Dr. Christopher, who rendered his knowledge on network security, which is very informative, and I hope you all are benefited with it. Today's session is headed by Dr. Mahesh, Assistant Professor of Cybersecurity from Massey University, USA. His focus of research is on privacy and security in IoT and digital forensics. Today, Dr. Mahesh will share his knowledge on research topics in network security and digital forensics. As the webinar room is full, those who cannot join us, you can go through the YouTube live and the link is shared in the WhatsApp group. Sir, please join us and share your views.
Good. Thanks, Ganesh, for the introduction. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
That's good. Shall I continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Hello, guys. I just want to know whether you can see my screen. Can you confirm?
Sir, yes, sir. Your screen is visible, sir.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to start. Yeah, thanks. Good morning, students and faculty. My name is Mahesh. As you know, I'm not going to talk about myself, because if you want to know about me, you can just go to Google and search for my first name and last name. You will get my information. And so in this webinar, I'm going to present some of the topics in cybersecurity. Teaching cybersecurity is not only my profession, but it also my passion. So here at Massey University, I usually teach cybersecurity courses. So I want to share some of the topics in cybersecurity. Now let's start with what is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is nothing but securing cyberspace from cyber attacks. Now, what is cyberspace? Cyberspace comprises of all the connected devices that are connected to the network, we can call internet or any big networks, and the information that is exchanged over the network and the things that are connected to the internet or network. For example, the mobile phones, laptops, space shuttles, transportation vehicles, and these days, pretty much we're connecting everything to the internet, even the smart devices like smart TVs, smart refrigerators, and security cameras, everything, right? So cyberspace includes all of these devices and the information and the networks. Now, so we have to essentially protect cyberspace from cyber attacks. Now, who is going to attack the cyberspace? So we call them hackers, right? There are different types of hackers. Let's start with state-sponsored hackers. Now, these hackers, they usually hack other country infrastructure or networks or systems on behalf of their country. Usually some countries, they employ hackers to spy on other countries' information. Like, for example, military strategies, military information, or sensitive information. So all the developed nations, they maintain these hackers. And the other type of hackers is hacktivists. These are the type of hackers who actually hack for a political or social cause. So they want to prove a point. Suppose if they think, some nation or some entity is not being fair, and these hacktivists, they come into the picture, they want to prove their point, and they try to damage the assets. We have a famous hacktivist like Anonymous. I'm sure you all are aware of that group. And the other type of hackers, script kiddies. So these are the hackers. We don't call them hackers, but they still try to hack into some things. They try to get some tools online, and they want to test their hacking skills, or they want to show off that they know hacking, right? So they're not professional hackers, but still they try to hack or damage some of the networks or systems. And there are other categories of hackers like black hat, white hat, and gray hat hackers. Black hat are the malicious hackers. Their motivation is to damage some infrastructures or to hack into some systems, maybe for ransom purpose or different purpose. They have different motives, right? Whereas white hat hackers are ethical hackers. So they do it for good purpose. So suppose, some companies, they hire ethical hackers to test their security posture of the networks. So they want to make sure their organization networks are secured. So to test their networks, they hire white hat hackers, or we can call ethical hackers. Now, the other type, gray hat hackers, they are in between black hat and white hat hackers. So we just coined this term because to represent a group of hackers who behave sometimes like a black hat and sometimes like a white hat hackers, right? And hacking can be done using a single command, or sometimes it takes a strategy, a plan, right? So a homework. Now, usually we say a hacking is achieved by following 5 phases of hacking. And let's start with the first phase. The first phase is reconnaissance or information gathering phase. In this phase, hackers usually collect information about the target. Here, target is the victim. So hackers collect different types of information about the target. The target could be a single person, or a target could be an organization, right? So now, if it is a person, hackers usually collect information about persons' email accounts or social network accounts, their addresses, their hobbies, their friends list, and their workplace, and so on. So that, once they collect all this information of the person, later they can use that information in order to hack into that person's email accounts or systems, or in any other ways. Suppose if the target is organization, then the hackers usually collect organizations' employees list, or organizations' products, or organizations' bosses, like their CEOs or vice presidents, etc. Right? So that they can use that information in later phases to launch a big attack. Now the next phase is scanning. In the scanning phase, hackers usually scan the networks. Hackers use the information collected. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry for the interruption. The hackers usually collect information from reconnaissance phase, and they use that information and they apply that information in scanning phase. So in this webinar, I'm going to cover first 2 phases in detail: reconnaissance and scanning. And rest of the phases I may not cover in detail, but I will just talk about a little bit. And the third phase is gaining access. So once they perform scanning, once they scan the networks, and once they gain useful information like about the system IP addresses and the services running on the system and the operating systems used on the system, once they collect all that information, then they can plan a big attack. They can plan exploits. They can run like password cracking methods, or they can inject malwares into the systems. So that system is called gaining access. For some attacks, it is required to maintain that access for longer period of time. For example, advanced persistent threats. These are the type of attacks where a longer period of access has to be maintained. And the last phase is covering tracks, which means once the attack is done, so hackers usually have to clear all the footprints, all the tracks, because they don't want to get caught, right? So they want to clear all the tracks. So what are those tracks? Usually every system log every activity. And suppose if hackers use their own computer and they try to hack into the victim system, that victim system log or record all those activities. So hackers usually try to delete all the log entries. Okay, so these are the 5 phases of hacking. Now, in this session, I'm going to talk about only first 2 phases. Okay, reconnaissance. As I said, it is nothing but collecting information about the target. Now, the information can be collected either passively or actively. So what do I mean by that? In passive reconnaissance, information is collected without interacting with the target, which means target may have no knowledge about these interactions. Like for example, an hacker may collect information about the target from a website, or from social media platforms, or through some friends, right? So in this, by doing this way, the target or victim cannot know that hacker is trying to collect information about the target. So that kind of reconnaissance is called passive reconnaissance. And the other type is active reconnaissance, where a hacker has to interact with the target in order to collect the sensitive information. So in this case, usually every system record all the activities. So these interactions are typically recorded and logged on target side. Now, whatever the case, the main purpose of this phase is collecting information about the target so that that information can be used in further phases. Okay. And so here the goal is to find as much information as possible about the target. Now here the target could be a person or an organization, like a corporate or any entity. Now, if it is a person, so the information could be the person's email accounts, date of birth, addresses, hobbies, friends list, and families, and social media accounts like Facebook account, Instagram accounts, or LinkedIn accounts, family, the person's weaknesses, right? So that those information could be used against the person in the later phases. If the target is organization, then the information could be the background of the organization, like what type of organization is that, what are their services, what are their products, and what are their websites and addresses, their phone numbers, emails, and employee details, and the employees' working hours, and their friends and families. Every piece of information can be used, at least is useful in later phases. And not only about organizations information, the main thing is about organization's network information, like what are the IP addresses owned by that organization. So what is its network infrastructure, what routers they use, what servers they have, and their IP addresses, their network blocks of IP addresses, what firewalls that organization use, right? All this information should be collected in reconnaissance phase. And some could be collected actively and other could be collected passively, right? Now, there are different information gathering techniques. So I'm going to cover few of those techniques, as there's a huge list. So I'm not going to cover everything. At least I'll try to cover few of those techniques. And the first one, which I like most, is Google docking. It is nothing but using some advanced operators in Google search. For example, you can see here, you can use in title as an advanced operator while searching for some information, or file type, or site. If you want to know all these additional advanced operators, you can visit this link, or you can just even Google docking. So you will find a list of these additional advanced operators. So let me show you, how you can use these operators in Google search. Meanwhile, can someone confirm that, like you're able to hear and see my screen? Just for double checking. Okay, looks like everyone is muted. No problem. Uh, uh, Before I
Yes, sir.
proceed,
Yes, sir. Your voice is audible and the screen is seen, sir, visible, sir.
okay, good. So this is my last time checking. I think now I'm confident. Good, they were able to hear. Okay, so let me show you how you can use. Okay, let me show you how you can use advanced operators in Google search. For example, I want to search for some information, and I'm sure that information is in PDF file, right? Maybe I want to just Google for Google docking itself, right? And I'm sure that all those advanced operators are available in PDF file. So I can use this operator called file type, and I can type PDF, right? Google will only show the results which has PDF content, right? So every search result is of PDF file, okay? And suppose if you want to search a specific website, so you can use site operator, then you can provide the site name, okay? So whatever website you want to give. And sometimes hackers use this Google docking for very deadly purposes. For example, uh, okay, here is the disclaimer, and whatever I'm going to show, don't try for a malicious purpose. So this is just for educational purpose, right? We're just learning. We're learning how hackers do certain things so that we can protect our assets, our information from hackers, okay? So this is all for educational purpose. Now, you can usually try like password, and so you are searching for the password file, right? Some, some websites or some people, they mistakenly, unknowingly upload their usernames and passwords to their own websites. Their intention is not to disclose their passwords, but they want to upload somewhere in their website so that they can only access that password file, right? They don't share that link, but they can log in and they can always check the passwords. That's their intention. But unfortunately, if they don't secure their website properly, those files could be exposed to anyone, to any hacker, right? For example, if you type like this password, and if you give the file type as Excel file, then it will give you all the Excel files which has passwords, right? So not every file may have password, but most of these files has usernames and passwords. Again, don't try these passwords on those real websites, okay? So we're just learning. Okay, and so I'm not going to open and show you the usernames and passwords. This is just one way that you can use these advanced operators in Google search. There are so many operators available with Google search, so you can find them by just searching Google docking or Google hacking. Okay. Okay, so let me continue. And another search engine that I like most is Shodan search engine. And it is just a website, shodan.io. You can visit this website. It is similar to Google, but it does things differently. Like it is a search engine for internet connected devices. Or I could say it's a search engine for IoT devices. So it will show you all the devices that are connected to the internet and which are vulnerable, which means which has some loopholes. You can easily access those devices without even using any login ID password, right? And those devices include webcams, surveillance cameras, security cameras, routers, servers, printers, smart TVs, all this stuff, right? So why? What made this search engine able to access all these devices? The reason is, suppose if you install a camera or if you install any router or server or printers, they all come with default ID and passwords. And it is the user's responsibility to change that default user ID and password. But some people, they forget, or out of ignorance or out of laziness, they don't change the default ID and password. So this specific website, it checks, it tries to crawl every devices on connected to the internet, and it tries to access with the default ID and password. If it was successful, then it will list that device on its website. So anyone can access those cameras. They can watch the camera live without actually entering any ID and password, because those users have installed cameras with just default ID and password. They forgot to change those default credentials, right? This is a very powerful site. Again, we're not supposed to use this site for malicious purpose. Okay, I can show you that site. So this is shodan.io, the search engine for everything, every device that is connected to the internet. Okay, and usually if you create a login, or if you create an account, so you will have more access to this site, so you can explore more features. For example, even without ID and without account, you can still explore some of those features, like you can access webcams that are vulnerable, that are open to public because of their vulnerabilities, and from all over the places. Suppose if you want to narrow down your search, if you want to just search within India or within some city, you can use the filter here, right? You can use country, and you can like search for specific country, specific city, or specific state, or specific devices. So there are a lot of filters, so you can explore. and you can try to see which devices are open to the public. Okay, and these are some of the ways hackers use to collect information about the target. And the easiest way and the most effective and powerful way is social engineering. Social engineering is nothing but manipulating the victim to give away the personal or sensitive information about the victim, right? So there are so many ways that a hacker can use to do social engineering, right? And some are based on computer, which involves computers, and some does not even involve computers, like human-based social engineering techniques. We'll see those techniques in the later slides, but for now, we'll just focus on computer-based social engineering techniques. The first one is email attachments. For example, if hacker wants to gain information from a victim, and if the victim is a boy, then hacker tries to send uh, a picture, a girl's picture, saying that, hey, this is a very cute picture, do you want to see? So boys usually tend to open that picture because it's a girl's picture, maybe a sexy picture. So they want to see that picture, and not knowing that that attachment has malware embedded into the file. So when a victim opens that attachment, a malware is installed by itself into the victim's computer and steals all the sensitive information from the victim's computer and sends back that sensitive information to the hacker, right? And so hackers, they try to use the weakness of the victims. And it can also be done with the different causes, like, hey, you got some you got some lottery, or you got some coupon. So here is the coupon attached, right? So that it depends on how vulnerable that woman is. Now, the second method is phishing. I think everyone knows about this phishing. So these days, phishing is so popular. So we'll be receiving like hundreds of phishing emails, right? Every week or every month. And so I'm going to spend some time talking about phishing in the next slides. Online scam. So online scams, like, hey, you got a lottery, or you earned a coupon, or there's a gift voucher, right? So you can claim this gift voucher, or will transfer some money to your account, right? These are all online scams. Why? Because hackers want to gain information from the victim. Now, next step, hackers ask the victim to give away the credit card details or some other details, right? And URL, the other way is URL obfuscation, which means hackers try to hide their actual malicious website URL with some tiny URLs. So now when you look at the tiny URLs, no one will have any idea what that URL is, right? So when you click that URL, when a victim click that URL, so that may lead to a malicious website which automatically extracts some information about victim. Okay, let's see about phishing. So what is phishing? It is the fraudulent attempt to obtain sensitive information of the victim by disguising as a trustworthy entity, right? It's like fooling a victim to get some sensitive information. Now, what is that sensitive information? It could be usernames, passwords, social security numbers. SSN is an American equivalent of Aadhaar card number, okay? Our credit card details, date of birth, and other details, right? So hackers try to collect as much information as possible from the victim by using phishing. And how is this phishing done? It is typically done by email spoofing or website spoofing, social network sites, messaging apps like WhatsApp and other apps. So there are so many ways a phishing can be done. So, but the ultimate goal is to lure the victim into clicking or giving away the information, right? Email phishing. For example, you can see email phishing. Phishing email looks like this. So PNC Bank is one of the American banks. So I usually take this PNC Bank as a reference because I have seen some of the phishing emails from this about this bank. So if you notice this email content, now every line, every word looks so authentic, right? But if you look at the URL looks fishy. And so there is a PNC bank in the URL, but it is not the main website. It is not main domain, right? So this is a phishing email. But how many of users are aware of this problem, right? So as an educated people, even they try to click this link without even checking whether this site is a genuine site or not, right? So hackers use the ignorance of users and try this kind of phishings. There are different types of phishings. Depends on whom you are targeting and how you are targeting. And spear phishing is about targeting specific individuals or companies. Sometimes, generally, hackers send normal phishing, which a mass phishing emails to target everyone. So they don't care. They don't target any single person. They just send a bunch of phishing emails to everyone, so that some may fall into the trap, right? So that's a normal phishing. But a spear phishing is targeting especially a specific individual or company, right? Whaling is type of spear phishing, but it usually directed at very high profile targets like CEO of the company or very boss of the company, right? And phishing is kind of phishing, but it is done using phone call, right? Like disguising like, hey, I'm so and so, I know you, and I'm trying to reach out to one of your friends. Can you give me their number, right? That's kind of phishing. And smishing is instead of using phone, they use text message, right? And another way is misspelled URLs. So if you look at this, this is a spoofed website. And if you look at the website, it exactly looks like Amazon authentic website, right? But if you look at URL, it has two N's, double N's. So it is not a genuine Amazon.com, right? So we usually tend to overlook these URLs, right? So how many of us can patiently read the complete URL and conclude that that URL is a genuine URL or not? Very rare, right? So people usually fall into trap with these spoofed websites. And the another example you can see Bank of America. So it looks like a genuine bankofamerica.com, except there are two A's in Bank of America, right? And Facebook. Usually for these websites, it is hard to get HTTPS or a digital certificate, right? But some websites may get away with this digital certificate, right? Why I'm talking about digital certificate? Because we usually trust a website only if that website is HTTPS instead of just HTTP, right? So it is hard for spoofed websites to get HTTPS. So it is important when you log into this type of websites, make sure that website is HTTPS, okay? Okay, and the other concept hackers usually follow is subdomains. So they use these subdomains to trick users in order to click those websites. For example, if you look at this citibank.bankhost.com, this website has the subdomain as Citibank, but not as a main domain. But some users who does not know about this subdomaining concept, they may think that this URL belongs to Citibank. They end up clicking this link, right? And similarly, the second one, Barclays Bank. Now, look at this page. It exactly looks like Microsoft Authentic login page. But if you look at URL, it's entirely different URL. Again, it uses subdomaining concept. Here, the main domain, the main domain is nofish.com. The subdomain is, of course, login.outlook.live. Now, does this site belongs to Outlook or nofish.com? It certainly belongs to nofish.com, not Microsoft Outlook, right? So here, the lesson is before you log in, make sure that URL is authentic URL. Similarly, a different page, a Google sign-in page, right? Here again, the main domain is nofish.com, which is a fake website, and the subdomain is actually accountsgoogle.com. So which means it does not belong to Google. It belongs to some fake website. Okay, and another method is link manipulation. IRS, it's actually, it belongs to America, so it deals with all income taxes. Now, usually most of the citizens in America, they get this kind of phishing emails saying that, hey, you didn't pay taxes properly, or you have some refund. So if you want to take the refund, you have to click this link, but they don't reveal the link, right? You can still know the link by hover on this link, and then you can see in the status bar that the complete website address of the link. So from this, you can know this is a phishing email, not coming from authentic IRS agency, right? Now, so far we just talked about social engineering techniques, which involves some technology, some computers or using some emails, right? But there are other techniques which does not involve any technology. We call human-based social engineering. Sorry, just give me, I'm going to take some break. Okay, sorry for the interruptions. Okay, I'm going to continue. Yeah, eavesdropping is just a human-based social engineering technique where people try to eavesdrop in other conversations. And trust me, these are so effective because I've seen some cases where people collecting passwords about victims, people collecting their date of births about victims just by doing eavesdropping. They don't even have to compose a phishing email. They don't have to even use a technology. Just by eavesdropping, a hacker can gain a lot of information about the victim, right? And the other method is shoulder surfing, where a hacker tries to overlook a victim's laptop, and when victim is trying to log in with their credentials, and hacker tries to steal that information just by overlooking over the shoulders, right? And tailgating is another technique. I think it's a self-explanatory that a hacker tries to follow a authorized person to get into a secured facility. And dumpster diving, you can find a lot of sensitive information just by doing this activity, because people usually try to scrap the sensitive information and they throw it in the trash, not knowing that will not be or that will be taken by anyone, right? So that's called dumpster diving. Now, the other techniques which fall under human-based social engineering are impersonation, quid pro quo, calling technical support and disguising as a IT person or someone like familiar person and gaining all the information. Okay. So here is the funny part. If you look at the security questions, so when you try to create an account or when you try to open a credit card, then you will be usually asked the security questions. So if you look at these questions, they're so silly. For example, take this question: what was the name of your first pet? Now, how hard it is for the hacker to get this information about the victim, right? And look at another question: what was the name of the organization where you conducted your first internship? So how hard it is to get this information about the victim? It is so easy because these days everyone wants to share their personal information on social media platform. Suppose if you take the first question, suppose if you get a first pet, what do? You immediately post that picture without a pet on your Facebook or Instagram or some other platform saying that, hey, this is my first pet brownie, something, right? So there you go. A hacker can get that information from that post and use that information against you. Or how about this information where you conducted your first internship? All this information is available on LinkedIn page, right? So like a hacker can get all this information about the schooling, the study, education, jobs, and everything about victim from visiting LinkedIn page, right? So, and there is a trick some people use, they don't answer these questions with actual answers. So suppose, here is a tip for you. And if you want to choose a security question like this, and if you want to answer the security questions, choose the answer for this question, don't give the actual answer. Give some fake answer and try to remove that fake answer. Okay. Okay. So far we just discussed about the first phase, reconnaissance. Now let's look at the second phase, which is scanning. So what happens in the first phase, hackers gain all this information, including the IP addresses or email accounts and different kinds of information using some information gathering techniques. And in this phase, hackers use that information collected in reconnaissance phase and scan the organizational networks. And the goal is to discover live systems of an organization and their open ports, vulnerable applications, their networks, their network devices like routers, firewalls, intrusion detection and prevention systems, etc. And the very popular tools to do this scanning are Nmap, popularly used across both hackers and security communities. And Nessus is another tool which can be used as a vulnerable scanner tool. Now, let's first look at how to detect live systems of an organization. So just assume that you know the IP range of the target network. Here the target is victim, right? So now you want to scan the victim's network and you have the knowledge of the IP addresses. Now, how do you know that whether those machines are alive or not? So you just try to ping. A ping is a basic command which is available on Windows and Linux machines, right? Just try ping and IP address. Now, if you get response as same as sent packets, then which means your ping is successful and the remote computer with this IP address is up and alive and it is reachable to you. So once you confirm that remote or target or victim's computer is running and connected to the internet, then you can plan your attack, right? Now, suppose if you get received as 0, which means that remote computer with this IP address is not active and running. But now you can check one single machine with ping. How about bunch of machines? There may be thousands of computers in an organization. So how can you check all those 1,000 computers at a time? You can't just try ping for every computer, right? It takes a lot of time. So that's where you have tools like Nmap and HPing, Angry IP Scanner, and different tools. So these tools, using these tools, you can scan the entire network of computers with a single command. You just have to give the range of IP addresses. Okay, and it will give you all the computers with IP addresses that are up and running and connected to the internet. Now, another piece of information which is very useful for hacking is port information. Usually the IP address and port together we call a socket, right? So to establish communication between two computers, you need to have sockets, and a socket is IP address along with port number. Now, the port number is a 16-bit unsigned integer, and there are different types of ports. Usually the ports are used at transport layer, and the TCP and UDP protocols, they use these ports. There are different types of ports, like some are well-known ports which are used frequently, and some are registered ports and dynamic ports. And these are some of the well-known ports, like port number 21. And so what is the significant about port number or ports? The port number indicates the service running on that computer. Why do you have to know the port number? Why do you have to hacker know that port number? If hackers knows the port number is open, which means that particular service is running on the target computer. By knowing that a specific service is running on the computer, then hacker can use some exploits to exploit that service, right? Now, that's why it is important to know what ports are open on the computer. And there are 3 states of port. Port can be open or port can be closed, which means that corresponding service is not running on the computer. And there could be a filtered port, which means there's a firewall protecting those computers. Okay. Now, so how this port scanning happens? How does it work? In order to understand that, you need to know the TCP 3-way handshaking. So I guess you know about this three-way handshaking. This is just using some three signals, three packets. If a client requests if a client wants to access a server, client just send a SYN message, and server sends SYNAC, and then again client sends acknowledgement. So there are three-way handshaking messages. And once the three-way handshaking is established, then both entities transfer data, right? So this is part of transport layer. Now, this protocol, this method can be exploited to check if a port is open or not. For example, a client sends a SYN packet along with the port number. And if the port is open, the server has to respond with SYNAC. So once client receives a SYNAC, which means it's a confirmation that that specific port is open, which means the corresponding service is running on the server, then a client can determine that that port is open. So this is good information for the hacker. Now hacker knows that that port is open and the corresponding service is running on the target computer, right? Suppose a port is closed, server sends a different message like reset packet, right? Now client knows that that port is closed, so client will not bother to exploit that service because anyway that service is not running on the server now. So this is the TCP header, and you can see the flags here. So by using a different combination of flags, you can have a different port scans. So for example, we can have TCP connect scan, TCP SYN scan, and different scans. I'm not going in detail about the scans. You can refer this link nmap.org for detailed port scanning methods. And this is the typical way how you scan a specific target computer for their most popular ports. So this is an example where a client or a hacker is trying to scan this computer with this IP address for 1,000 most popular ports. And you can see the output. There are two ports are opened. One is port 22 and another one is port 5900. The port 22 is about secure shell protocol, which means now hacker knows that SSH protocol is supported on the target machine, which means the SSH is running on the target computer. Now, all these protocols may have some vulnerabilities or loopholes. Sometimes people forget to configure those protocols securely. So hackers can exploit those protocols by knowing that those services are running on the target computer. Now, there are different types of scans, like vertical versus horizontal, which means a hacker, by using a single computer, can scan multiple ports on the remote computer, because a hacker wants to know which port is open so that he can prepare exploits or he can launch attacks specific to that port, right? That's a vertical scan. Whereas in the horizontal scan, hacker wants to scan multiple computers for the same specific port. Maybe a hacker wants to exploit a web server. So here hacker is trying to scan for port 80 or port 443, which are used in web server, right? So, but a hacker may not know which computer is supporting web server. So hacker has to scan all the computers for that specific port 80 or port 443. Now, one of the computer may respond saying that, hey, I'm using this port. So that is a good information for the hacker. Okay, and a different way of looking this port scanning is single source scan or distributed scan, which means a hacker may use a single computer to scan the entire network, or a hacker can use multiple computers parallelly to scan the entire network, right? So usually the distributed scanning is more powerful and it can evade firewall policies. Okay, now here the main problem is how to detect these port scans. Now so far we learned from hacker perspective, right? So how a hacker actually performs all these attacks, all these hacking things, right? But let's talk about how to protect, let's talk from security perspective or security personal perspective, right? So how can we detect these port scans? For starters, actually, we can use intrusion detection and prevention systems where we write some signatures like, hey, if there's a pattern, if there's a port scanning pattern, and try to block the traffic. But again, these intrusion detection and prevention systems are not that effective. A sophisticated hacker can easily bypass those firewalls and IDS and IPS device security devices, right? So there's a lot of research happening or happened to just detect all these port scanning methods. And every research method has its own drawbacks, right? So there's a lot of big scope to come to do research in this area. And okay, so I want to stop here, and I would like to take some questions if you have any regarding these concepts. Okay.
Yeah, now the audience can raise their doubts and can get them clarified in the chat box.
I don't find any messages. I'm not sure if I'm not receiving good messages or if we have no questions at all. Okay, I think we have still 9 more minutes to wrap up the session. So we can.
Sir, you can continue for another 5 minutes.
No, I think I'm done with this.
Okay, fine.
I'm open to
It
questions.
is better to give your email so that they can contact afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Here is my email not there on the slides, like introduction slides? Not my slides, like your slides, your brochure or something. I'm not sure whether I shared that email or not.
Yeah, we will share that email ID. We have your email ID, sir. We'll share with the participants.
Sure, madam. So you have my you have right to share my email address. Then okay, then I think if you have no questions, I'm gonna stop the session right here.
Sir, thank you for sharing your clear and factual analysis on network security. So please accept our thanks for your wonderful presentation, and we wish you continued success in your field of success. And thank you so much, sir, for accepting our request and joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience and for your time and for listening to me. And so I have only covered just some of the concepts in cybersecurity. There's a
And
lot.
I wish to conclude the session on behalf of EC department and IT thank you, and we render our heartfelt thanks to the speakers of the webinar, Dr. Christopher and Dr. Mahesh, for spending their valuable time here. And we are thankful to our beloved Chairman, Sir, Principal Ma'am, for the encouragement in the conducting such sessions. Last but not least, we thank our beloved HOD Ma'am, staff, and organizers for leading this session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. And here is an announcement for the audience. And we'll share the feedback form in the WhatsApp groups, which you are added. Please fill the forms. And certificates for all the attendees will be emailed within 5 working days. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, I think I'm gonna exit from here. So all the best to you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. You will get my email from.
Sure, sir. We'll provide them, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Bye.